Welcome. So today we're going to talk about learner assessment, okay? Learner assessment. How many of you evaluate in class? Everybody should be raising their hands, okay? This is what we do all the time. So we're going to be looking at a little theory. Now this, to be honest, it's a topic we don't normally hear much about, okay? If you were to go to a bookstore specializing in language teaching and second language acquisition, you're not going to find many books on language assessment. There aren't that many out there, okay? It's not a topic that people like to talk about. They're not very comfortable with. Welcome, John. But we have to talk about the topic anyway, because it's a very important part of your work each and every day. So we're going to look at some of these things. We're going to look at theory. We're going to look at practice. We're going to listen. We're going to read some samples. We'll try to evaluate them. We're going to work on something called inter-rater reliability. These are all very important concepts and principles that apply to learner assessment. You need to understand it. You need to understand our system as well, okay? How many of you are teaching adult courses right now? Kids courses? Any courses? Okay. Spanish. Okay. Now remember that the methodology applies the same way to Spanish. Okay, in fact, don't forget the Euro experience, which is supported by what? QLL. The Euro experience is ULL Dynamics. Right here, this gentleman, he knows. Good, James. So it applies to all languages the same way. It doesn't matter. We focus on English, but you use the QLL Dynamics framework to teach Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, German. I said German, right? Okay. So, okay. And then we'll do a little review. So, assessment, principles, and concepts. Let's look at the theory first so we understand how things work, why they work a certain way. Okay? Specifically, work in groups of 3, and I'd like you to discuss a couple of questions. 1, when, how, and what do you assess in relation to learner performance? And when and how do you offer feedback? This is very important. So think about your classes, the ones that you've been teaching lately, or in general, whenever you teach. When, how, and what do you assess in relation to learner performance? And when and how do you offer feedback? Okay? Now, these are important questions for what comes after. Okay? Get together, get into groups. Here you can form a group of 4. Hemley, right? Yes. Okay. All right. Let's see what we have. Sebastian, what did you guys come up with?
We came up with the idea that when the student is producing L2 output, for example, they are coming up with their own sample sentences. You have to wait until they finish, so you can model if they have any mistakes, or you can suggest or maybe ask something in order to, if they can correct their previous answer.
All right.
So they acknowledge if they have any mistake, so they're like thinking again about the answer.
Good. So whenever we get output from our students, we enact assessment. We put it into practice. Okay? And we do so in a variety of ways, including giving the student an opportunity to self-correct in response to the feedback you may give that student. Very good. Charles Kummerer.
Yeah, we talked about a few things. I mean, I guess sort of applied to what they were talking about there. If they're doing speaking, right, and this is in the class setting, group setting, and one person's responding for what their group discussed in an activity, let them just say what they're going to say. Do not correct them if they use a verb tense slightly incorrectly, and then you jump in and correct them right away. That's really bad. Don't do that. In your mind, be assessing them on their fluency level, but don't be actively cutting them off, because the other students will see this and they'll be like, I don't want to speak and get corrected and look like an idiot, that sort of stuff. They think about these things. This is how students function. And they'll get nervous, and you want an open environment when you're teaching English.
All right. Now, both gentlemen came up with different ideas that may seem contradictory to each other, but they're both right.
Yeah.
They're actually both right. Okay? But let's keep on discussing this. One more person in the back. James?
Well, my thought was that the level of performance and how I might correct them is based on the level of English that they're in. So my basic 1 or 2 class would make a certain kind of mistake, or if my advanced class made the same mistake, you see, I might look at that differently, because my advanced class should not make the same mistakes as my beginner class.
Okay.
So I look at where they're supposed to be, and but I agree with the other teachers that I would wait, see if the student can self-correct, and then sometimes I'll ask the other students, what do they think about it, see if they can join in and make them engage, and then if nobody can get it, I might give them my opinion.
Okay, all right, very good. Charles?
So-
go ahead.
This is sort of relevant to what we're talking about, but more than thinking about the actual class setting. So if we have a student who is clearly not the level of the class that they've been placed in, right? They've somehow managed to kind of weasel their way through the last 3 levels and get through, and when they're speaking, it's not whatever the level's supposed to be. When they're writing, it's clearly not the level. What do we do? Because obviously we're not just going to be like, get out of my class. Like, no, you don't do that. And you're going to teach them, and you're not going to out them in front of other people. But what is the process through which we go to approach you guys?
Now, this might sound terrible.
Yeah.
It might be completely wrong. I don't think so, but I'm going to try to answer your
Yeah.
question. All right. Some people play tennis on clay. Some people play tennis on grass. They play better, right? Depends on what kind of a field or they're playing on. So they might do terribly. This student might have done terribly in the course before for whatever reason. It may seem non-fluent. But all of a sudden, the way you teach might get them to meet the goals and objectives for your particular course, right? So the first thing you do, because it's going to happen on day 1, you're going to run into a student, you say, where did this student come from? Apparently the student doesn't seem to be at the right level. But that doesn't change the fact that the student is there. And the student's going to be there for 24 hours or more, depending on the type of course that you're teaching. So you have to do everything you can to help that student learn as much as possible in accordance with your course goals and objectives. You're not going to try to teach them everything they saw before. That's not your job. You're not going to try to reteach basic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and on top of that, the basic 6 stuff. You have to focus on your course. You have to try to help the student. If the student meets the goals and objectives for your course, for the most part, they pass. Now, you are going to be giving them feedback. You're going to give the student feedback. You're going to say, hey, listen, you got to work on your fluency. I advise you to do this. I recommend that you go to this webpage. Whatever you got to do to help this student. Okay? But we don't automatically assume that the student is a failed student. Because if we do, chances are, according to research, when we have a negative predisposition towards a student or a group of students, they usually fail. Okay? Now, I remember many years ago, somewhere in a distant universe, and I had a group of teachers, and we had just changed the evaluation system. And so one teacher got up and she said, well, listen, I just got to say, you know, first day of class this month, and I already knew about 50% of my students were going to fail. Yeah, that's what I said. So, and I listened quietly, and I said, okay, I'll let them speak. All right. And then this other guy got up, and he said, yeah, you know what? Yeah, me too. You know, I was teaching basic 9, and these guys, it was intermediate 9. These guys were more or less at a basic 8, basic 7 level. So I had 2 things to say. One, I said, you must be a magician or a mind reader or whatever, or a fortune teller, because how is it possible that you can tell from the very first day, those first 2 hours, actually 90 minutes, that you just met these students and you already know they're going to fail? I mean, how is that even possible? It's not, in my mind, it's not possible. So you're already sentencing your students to failure by having this negative predisposition. Of course, it's common practice to blame the teachers before you. I've seen this. I did a study. I actually studied 200 and something teachers. I asked them, I said, well, what do you think? Do you think the teachers are evaluating correctly? No. 92% said, no, my colleagues are not doing a good job. I am, but they're not. Yeah? So once they're in your class, you got to do everything you can to help them. They may have weaseled their way in, or it might not be their fault. It might be our fault, because we didn't evaluate them correctly. We didn't give them the support they really needed. Okay? So, in the end, what we have is many different types of assessment. We have many different types of feedback. It depends on what kind of situation we have, and that's what we're going to see today. Very good. Yes, sir. Final comment.
Thank you, Leo. First of all, I guess we have to check out and see, we're talking about assessment and or evaluation, right? And then it's my opinion.
Yeah, make sure I have something to say after this. So don't. Yeah. Because you're gonna.
Then I'll go down to the question number one. The way I would say all the time, since the very beginning, which doesn't mean that you have an idea of what they are going to produce or not.
Right.
But maybe think of what you can do to help him or her in class.
Good. Good.
The how and what depends on what we are evaluating, let's say, or assessing, if it's a receptive skill or a productive skill, and so on.
Okay.
Right. The feedback thing is related to a must, right? But we also have to consider that the correction thing, like one of our partners was saying, has different options. We do have different options to correct students. There are moments and special strategies, and there's theory about that also. And but we do have to give feedback, and we have to find the right way to give feedback as well.
Right.
Because, like you said before, sometimes we don't find the right way to give feedback, and sometimes it happened to me once in my certain time teaching experience that one student didn't come back to class.
Right. Right. Depends on the feedback. I'll tell you a story a little later about that, about the feedback. Good. So there are some major issues. There are some major challenges when it comes to engaging in assessment. I'd like you to work again with your team. Try to figure out what these challenges might be. I gave you the first letter. I don't remember if the little periods are, the dots are indicative of the number of letters in the word. I don't think so, but maybe not. So anyway, try to figure out what these words are. I'll give you 2 minutes to do that. Exactly. I'll be timing you with a stopwatch, and we'll see what we have. What? Let's see. Anybody got this C right here? Criteria? Timing?
Setting.
It's similar to setting, but it's not exactly the same. S-A and the I-N-G? S-A-I-N-G? S-A-I-N-G? S-A? Sampling. Sampling. Okay. Well, let's look at the answers. Okay, here we go. There we go. Okay. Grading. Now, which of these do you think is the hardest? How many of you think criteria is the biggest challenge? Grading. Yeah? Most of you? Interpretation of the results. What does this actually mean? What do all these 3s and 4s and stuff mean? Yeah? Okay. Follow up. Now, they're all important. They're all important. Now, we have to know how to grade. How do you issue a grade? In order to grade, you need the right sample. You have to apply the right criteria. And once you grade, based on the sample and the criteria, you got to interpret the results, and you got to do the follow-up, all within a certain period of time. Yeah?
Has the criteria got to be, or have the criteria got to be standardized? Or?
Yes. Otherwise, everybody does their own thing. Yeah? And I've seen this before. It's very important that we have a standardized approach to criteria for assessment. Okay? We have to have a clear idea of what we're looking for in each and every course at the instructional level and also at the program level. Okay? Because in the end, as we are evaluating our students, we're checking to see if they have succeeded in meeting goals and objectives, but we're also contributing to a general profile. So after they study in your program for a certain amount of time, what does the student look like? What does the student sound like? What can they do with the language? And there better be a match, because if there isn't a match, we didn't do our jobs right. We didn't evaluate them correctly. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, good. All right, so who are these people? Oh yeah, what are 3 differences? I'd like you to continue. I'll give you another 2 minutes. What are 3 differences between, now remember we talked about different types of assessment. And actually, assessment is like an umbrella term. It's a very general term. because there are many different kinds of assessment. We want to be a little more specific. We have assessment, we have evaluation, and we have testing. We also have different kinds of assessment. So here we're looking at formative and summative assessment. Formative, summative assessment. What might be two differences or three differences between them? Could you take a look at that now? Come up with a list and get back to me in 2 minutes. Look at the roots of the words right here. Let's see. Let's move to this side of the room. John, give us one. One difference.
Formative is constant, it's ongoing, whereas the summative is the one, the final exam at the end.
That sounds right. How many of you agree with John? Don't be afraid to raise your hands. Huh? You're like, is it, yeah? Raise it up high, man. Raise it up high. Come on. Anybody else? James,
I agree with that.
why do you agree with him?
Because he's on my team.
Ah, very good. All right. That is correct. Summative assessment takes place at determined times during a course. All right, so I'm not going to say more because I'm going to give away part of the other answer. And formative assessment is ongoing. Very good, John. Yes?
So summative assessment is like a midterm and a final test.
Those would be examples. Yes, good. He's giving us examples. Very nice. Okay. What about the formative one, ongoing? What is that? What do you think? What would be an example of that?
It's like when we want to look, to measure the progress of the student.
Measure the progress of the student. Okay. All right.
Necessarily giving a grade.
Okay. So wait a minute. All right. Let's latch on to that idea. So not necessarily grade. So no grade for formative.
Yeah.
Grade for summative?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another difference. Grade, no grade. John, he wants extra credit.
A formative can be as simple as a pop quiz in the morning, on the start of the lesson. Okay, tell me what you did at the weekend.
Okay.
What did we do last lesson? Explain what we did last lesson. It can be as simple as that.
Okay.
Or writing a memo.
Okay. Or writing a memo. Okay. All right. Very good. Yes, Emily?
We wrote something about that too, grading, no grading, formative, no grading, and summative grading. Formative continuous and summative maybe not continuous, and the direction. Formative teacher student, the information is given from the teacher to the student, and in summative, the information comes from the student to the teacher.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. That's a new angle. I like that. I like that very much. Did everybody hear, Emily? Yeah. Could you repeat that nice and loud again?
Okay, the last one?
Yeah.
Yeah, the direction of the information in the formative, we have that is the teacher, from the teacher to the student, and in summative, from the student to the teacher.
Okay. All right. That's good. Anybody else got another difference out there? Okay. Don't be afraid. Yes.
I guess we were saying that, I mean, I agree with, what's his name again? John, right?
John.
He said that, that formative is ongoing, you do it like every day, maybe.
Right.
Summative is you do it at the end, but we were discussing this, and we think that you can also have formative every day, but also summative, I mean, if you give a grade every day, maybe. I know this is not the case here, but you can also do.
I mean, technically you could do that. It's probably not advisable because the summative assessment usually takes place after students have been able to perhaps finish a unit or a certain block of learning. Yes?
And also the summative, you evaluate the learning process, comparing it with a benchmark or a standard.
Right. Good. So that you're comparing it to benchmark or standard, whereas formative assessment is data collection. You're basically gathering information from your students and making decisions which are relayed to your students. Okay, so you're watching. So right now I'm doing a little formative assessment. I'm watching you guys. I'm trying to see if you're still awake. If I see anybody sleeping or I hear anybody snoring, then no, I would never do that. I did it once, actually, no, many years ago. That's a long story. But, oh my goodness. Anyway, all right. No, there was a reason for that. But anyway, I have to adjust. Wait a minute. Why are people sleeping and why are people snoring during my talk? Something's wrong. I'm not doing something right here. I have to adjust my presentation. The same thing happens with teaching. If your students are not on task, Did I do my instructions correctly? If my students are bored, is the activity being carried out the right way, etc.? Am I offering them the right input? These are things that I must analyze permanently. Does anybody know how many decisions we make in a typical 2-hour class? Can you guess? Many, that's the safe answer. It's anywhere between 200 to 300 decisions. Okay, those are a lot of decisions. Most of those decisions are based on what we're getting from our students as we watch them, as we listen to them. Okay? Good job. All right. So, we're going to watch a video, and it better work. So we're going to watch a video, and my question is this. Has the teacher, we're going to watch this teacher, has the teacher succeeded in getting the young learners to understand the meaning of the new vocabulary? So this is comprehension, okay? So do the students understand the meaning of this new vocabulary that they're getting? And how do you know? Now when we ask how do you know, this is a question you need to ask yourself each and every day. How do I know if my students are learning? How do I know if my students have met the objectives for the lesson? How do I know if my students are content? How do I know if my students understand me? How do I know if my students can do this or that? You have to get evidence from your students. They must give you something to work with, to interpret, okay? So we're going to watch this class, and we need to look for evidence that will indicate to us whether they do or they do not understand, okay? The new words.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, teacher. How are you? Great. Okay, today we're going to be working with birds, right? Birds and examples of birds. Let's begin with this. What is this bird? And this? Run. And this? Read. And this? Look. And this? And this? Wow. Very good. So now, let's play this video. Please stand up, everybody. So you have to do the actions you watch on the screen, right? Be ready.
Let's get up and move. Are you ready?
Yeah!
Here we go. Run.
Run. Repeat. Walk. Repeat.
Jump.
Jump.
Fly.
Fly.
Wow. Dance.
Dance.
Swim.
Swim.
Ski.
Ski.
Hug.
Hug.
Rollerblade.
Rollerblade.
Yay. Play the piano.
Play the piano.
Play the guitar.
Play the guitar.
Play baseball.
Baseball.
Play golf.
Play golf.
Ride a bike.
Ride a bike.
Sing a song.
So take a seat now. Let's take a seat. So now, I'm going to show you the verb, and I want you to tell me examples of the verb. Right? What is this verb? Green. Green. Who can give you an example with green? Yeah? You? Uh-huh. Very good. Very good. You drink water. Tell me what I'm doing. They are drinking the soda. Tell me what.
We are drinking and use apple juice.
We are drinking apple juice. Very good. Let's continue. What is this verb?
Eat.
Eat and eating. Who can give me an example with eat? Tell me. You are eating pizza. Very good. Yeah? I am eating. Very good. I am eating pizza. You, Gabriel.
I am
I am eating a hamburger. Irina. I am eating pizza. Very good. So let's continue. What is this verb? Speak and speaking. Give me an example. I am speaking English. Very good. French. They are speaking French. Oliver.
We are speaking English.
Very good. We are speaking in English. So what is this verb?
Cooking.
Cooking. Who can give me an example? Is it cook? Yeah?
My father cook.
Yeah. It could be in the house. Yeah, my father cooks in the house. Yeah.
My mother are cooking the rice.
How it sounds better? My mother are or my mother is?
My mother is.
My mother is cooking. Very good. Let's continue with the next verb. What is this verb?
Swim and swimming.
Swim and swimming. Swim. Who can give an example using the verb? Tell me.
I am swimming on the water.
In the water. I am swimming in the water. Yeah?
And you are swimming in the beach.
You are swimming in the beach. Very good.
I am swimming in the beach.
I am swimming in the beach. Very good. Let's continue with the next. What is this verb? Sleeping. Who can give me an example? Emily, can you? You can't. Okay, so pay attention so you can learn, right? Yeah, say one.
I am sleeping in hospital.
I am sleeping in the hospital. Tell me.
I am sleeping in the resort.
I am sleeping in the resort. Yeah?
I am sleeping in the house.
I am sleeping in the house.
Okay, discuss with your partners for 60 seconds and come to the conclusion. Do the students understand what these words mean? Yes or no? How do you know? 1 minute, 60 seconds. Very good. Josie, talk to us. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say the kids understood the meaning of the new vocabulary. You did like the sort of kind of silly activity, like they had to get up and they had to do the actions along with the video, so it was like fresh in their mind that they'd always remember doing the activities, and when he tested them at the end, he was even like testing them in the correct grammar, and they seemed to be getting it.
Okay. How many of you agree with Josie? They do understand what these words mean? Raise your hand if you do agree. Okay, okay. That's practically everybody. Okay. Cigar, talk to us. Do you agree with Josie and why? Did you raise your hand? I didn't see, because you're in the front row. Did you raise your hand?
Well, yes, well, I didn't hear like...
She said yes, they understand. What do you think?
Well, in my opinion, yes, I agree. Well, I think they understood because they were practicing and they also could formulate their own sentences. Yeah.
How many of you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah? Listen, the ultimate proof is what they can come up with, right? Can they use these words? Can they come up with their own original sentences? Remember, we talked about this with grammar. You want to check to see if the grammar lesson was successful? Make sure your students give you their own examples before you move on. Yeah? Cesar?
I believe this was mentioned by you last week also, or 2 weeks ago. And you said make it meaningful because, I mean, in the past we learned like Mr. Smith is a lawyer and then Mr. Jones and blah, blah. And when they come up with their own examples and personalize the thing, it makes it you kind of get that they are following you.
Excellent. Very good. Now, we don't really know if they understand when they're doing the imitation and they're watching the video because they're just, well, they're saying it out loud, but they're repeating a model and they're repeating what they see in the image. It is, well, if we use a triangle, how many of the elements in the triangle, how many of the dynamics are we covering with this lesson? Kinesthetic, Good. Technology, good. Motivation, all of them. They're all there. In less than 5 minutes, 4 minutes and 30 seconds, they're all there. Okay, very good. All right, let's move on. Let's look at second language acquisition theory. What do the literature and research tell us? Okay, so is there a difference? Assessment, evaluation, testing. Evaluation and testing are usually associated with grades. Testing are usually takes the form of standardized assessments. Evaluation can be forms. It can be ongoing performance-based assessment. Okay, these are usually the ones we associate with grades. This is a more generic term. We've talked about formative assessment and the like. Okay? Okay. Rehearsal versus evaluation. Many years ago, when I started teaching for the first, no, actually not the first time, I had already taught somewhere else. I told you about that class with 132 students, right? Did I tell you that story? Yes. Yeah, okay. So after that, I went to work somewhere else, okay? Where I stayed for almost 20 years. And I remember when I started there, everybody was doing the same thing. They were working with a course book, and so they were introduced to grammar, and then you had a speaking activity that would come like on the next page, and they would use that speaking activity to grade students. What do you think about that? Is that a good idea?
Maybe not.
Why not?
Personalized.
Okay, okay, all right. It's not personalized, okay. Why isn't that a good idea in general?
You need a little more time for them to capture all the information, to use it by their own, and then maybe also to tell them to study because they're going to have tests.
We usually tell students, yeah, we could tell students, hey, there's an assessment coming up or an evaluation coming up, but they need time to process the language, right? To come to terms with this new language, personalize it, yeah? Make it a part of their own, right? And then you create an activity or a task that's specifically designed to grade them, right? So when they're ready, in other words, they've rehearsed enough, they've practiced enough, they've built up their confidence, they think they can do it, then you evaluate them, okay? In the past, we didn't do that. Actually, I've always been kind of a rebel because I've always done things differently, okay? I didn't always do them right, but I did things differently. But that's the idea. So learning, they learn, they practice, then they get evaluated, okay? Because what we normally see in many cases, you go from learning straight to evaluation, and that is not the right thing to do, okay? That's a very basic principle. Time and acquisition. I'm going to try to, so we got a lot of practice activities to do. This basically means it takes a long time to get from an A2 or high basic level to an intermediate level, to a high intermediate level, to an advanced level, and finally to a high advanced, okay? So we have A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. In other words, acquisition doesn't take place instantaneously in most cases. It tends to happen much more quickly with children. Okay, they tend to acquire language more quickly and through natural exposure. That's why when we try to teach them grammar in the traditional way, they don't get it. It doesn't work with them. So they learn language by doing things, by playing games, engaging in kinesthetic activities and such, okay? And once they're exposed to input, they tend to assimilate the input much more quickly than teenagers and adults for many different reasons, okay? But it never happens instantaneously. It's like a word comes in and boom, like Matrix. They used to kind of plug you in the back. And then, what's his name? Canal Reeves, he learned how to do the judo and jujitsu and all this stuff in 50 million languages in less than an hour, right? Now that doesn't happen, okay? It takes time. There's also something called reproduction and production. And I think I've talked about this, right? Reproduction and production. Reproduction is kind of like saying something based on the model, right? So we read something, we see a conversation in the course book, we read a text, so a lot of what we say is similar to what we've seen or what we've heard, or we listen to a listening text, okay? Whereas production is instantaneous, personalized, unique for that moment, Okay? It's really yours. It's coming out from you. Okay? You're not reading some script. You didn't read a script 5 minutes ago. I didn't listen to Hamley, and I'm just repeating what he said 2 minutes ago. This is my unique productive language. Okay? Does that make sense? So there's reproduction and production. They're both good, and we need both, and we do assess both. Okay? We do assess both. Because if one doesn't go well or the other doesn't go well, we still have to teach differently. We have to do something different. Yeah? We have to fix it. Okay. So for example, let me go back very quickly. So reproduction is learned, controlled, tends to be monitored, okay? Semi-spontaneous, okay, because like we did, remember we did the practice with the conversations and we did the role play up front? This is semi-spontaneous. Intensive practice recently, form-focused, and there's a lot of emphasis on accuracy. Here the emphasis is on fluency. Production is fluency, okay? All right. All right. So assessment practices, what do we need to do? We need to get samples. You'll get this chart. You'll get this chart. We're going to make it available online, right, John? Yeah. Yeah, good. All right. So listen, let me kind of like summarize all this stuff. This is from a book written by a wonderful guy, H. Douglas Brown, H.D. Brown. He's retired now. This is from his book. Basically, he's saying there are different types of listenings, different types of speaking samples, different types of reading samples, writing samples. For example, if we look at listening, a selective listening sample, the student processes segments of language, such as parts of a conversation or an excerpt from a monologue, to scan for specific information. Intensive, the student listens for language features such as phonemes or discourse markers or words, specific words, types of intonation in longer segments of language. Okay? If we look at speaking, responsive, the student provides limited responses within a short, controlled dialogue. Extensive, the student offers an extended speaking sample in the form of a monologue, like when you're giving a speech or you're giving a presentation. Okay? But the important thing is this, regardless of what it says in the chart. The quality of your evaluation will depend on the quality of the sample you get from your students. Okay? You have to know how to get the right samples. In order to know what kind of sample you need, you have to know what you're evaluating. You need to know the objective. So for example, if I'm listening, I keep on picking on you, Hamley. I hope you don't feel like I'm picking on you excessively. So I need to evaluate him on his ability to use I'll have and I would like, or I'd like, right? To order food in a restaurant. Okay, place an order. So, Helen, right? You guys are working together. Hamley's the waiter. Okay, Helen is the customer. She's going to place an order. Okay, and I'm going to kneel. I usually kneel. I won't be able to do this much longer, maybe within 10 more years. Anyway, I'm listening to them, right? And Helen is placing an order. So I'm going to look for what? I'm going to look for her. She's going to try multiple times to say, I'd like, I'll have. Okay, for starters, I'll have the mozzarella sticks. As the main course or the entree, let me have the roast beef, mashed potatoes, and vegetables. I'm getting hungry. I'll also have a Coke, and let me get an apple pie at the end. I'll have an apple pie. Okay, so she'll try 4 times. Now she might get one of them wrong. She might say, "I'll like an apple pie," but she says the other 3 okay. I'll come to the conclusion that in general terms she can handle that grammar for placing orders in a restaurant. I'll come to that conclusion. I have to know what the focus is. Am I looking for grammar? Because I might be looking for vocabulary. If I'm looking for vocabulary, what do I need to hear from her? First, when we go to a restaurant, what do we ask for? Food. What kind of food? Stages. Okay, starters, main course, dessert, drinks. I need to listen to, unless she's on a diet. Okay? That might be the avoided strategy. She might be on a diet. She only asks for the apple pie. But anyway, okay, so if she gets the right vocabulary, okay, she knows the vocabulary. Boom. That's the sample. You got to know what to look for. What are you looking for? What kind of language do you need to get? Now listen, the sampling is important because once I get the sample I need from her, I got to move. I'm not just going to, kneel here all day. Okay, that was great. I gave her an excellent score, and I'm just going to, I'll hang out over here anyway. You got to move to your other students. In some institutions, you got to move 24 times. Although now it's more like 27 or 30, whatever, right? Here, fortunately, you don't have to move 24 times. You move 15 at the most, right? So you have 16, maximum of 16. I listen to her. I move on to Akash. I want to listen to Akash. Okay, he's doing okay. All right, I give him this grade. Okay, I move to Charles. I'll go to Charles. I'll give him a grade. And I do that over and over again. So that's why I need to get the right sample. Sampling and the time is a challenge. The bigger your group, the harder it is to get the samples within a certain period of time. So you have to be very efficient. How do you know if you did the evaluation correctly? You're tired and you might be sweating a little bit. That means you worked. Okay? So you got to move around. You got to get those samples. You got to grade them, move to the next student over and over. If you take too long, what happens? If I hang out over here with Helen for a while, oh yeah, I got to evaluate James over here. Oh yeah, I forgot about James. Let me go over here. Yeah, okay, James.
He's already lost interest. He's mind somewhere else.
He's sick and tired of doing this role play for 25 minutes. He's tired. The quality of his sample is no longer the same. So it's unfair to him. Because once I finally get to him, because I'm moving around slowly, Mr. Slowpoke, I get to him, the quality's not the same. He's going to get a lower score. He's going to be like, oh, okay. Plus, I'm not even switching partners or anything, no kinesthetics, no nothing. So it's hard for him to remain engaged for all that time. So you have that challenge. You have to get the right samples, you have to grade them, you have to apply criteria, all within a certain period of time. So evaluation is supposed to take a lot of time, and it requires a lot of work. If it doesn't, you're not doing it right. Or you're doing it your own way because you want to. You're following a shortcut. Now, what do some people do? I shouldn't tell you this because it might be a temptation for you. Some people say, okay, he can get a score of 3. Okay, I'll automatically start off with a 2 and let's see if he goes up or down. Don't do that. Don't do that. No. That's a shortcut. It's unacceptable. Don't do that. Some people just get, oh yeah, I didn't get to her, but she's been doing well anyway, so I'll put in a 2. Sure, why not? Nobody's going to know. Actually, technically, nobody will find out. It's up to you. Now, it's up to you if you want to be honest to yourself. All right? You got to be professional. Okay? It's up to you whether you actually do it or not. Because you could kind of like, oh, yeah, sister, the whole month he's been like a 3, and I forgot to update my list, so I'll put 3. Don't do that. You you owe it to your students to do this professionally, okay? I shouldn't have to say that. I know you guys would never do anything like that. Anyway. Sample, evaluate, grade. Sample, evaluate, grade. Okay? Actually, that's changed. It's called Legos. It's no longer called Elgoose. That's an old term. It's Legos. Legos, not the Lego little blocks. No. But they're kind of like blocks. And basically what we're doing here, we're working with learning goals and objectives. Learning goals and objectives. Every class has a learning goal and objectives. Every activity has a learning goal and one or more objectives. Okay, so there's a purpose for everything we do in class. Okay, so how do we create ours? The learning goals are derived from the Common European Framework. Okay? The learning objectives are taken from our course book and they're fixed up a little bit so they have a certain language. We're working on them right now. And the learning outcomes, which is what we use, this is what we use for our grades, they're taken from something called the Global Scale of English. Okay? All right. So we're going to do a little exercise. You should have this in your handout. These are goals. These are objectives. These are outcomes. These are standards for the Common European Framework that are most related to the learning goals, objectives, and outcomes. What I want you to do is I want you to match them correctly. In other words, they're all mixed up. Okay? So look at this. We go from general to more specific each time. General to specific. Goal, objective, outcome. They keep on getting more and more specific. They have to match. So for example here, the goal is by the end of the course, the student will be able to compare and contrast preferences. Now what would that match in terms of the objective? This is what we teach. This is what we evaluate. This is what we teach. This is what we evaluate. So by the end of the course, the student will be able to compare and contrast preferences. Is that in accordance with to describe what the situation or story is, to inform an audience with respect to a topic of interest, to describe various alternatives and decide on one? These two go together. You have to find the outcome and the CEFR descriptor that go with these two. Do you see that? Okay, I'll give you 4 minutes. Cindy, right? Cindy, what do you say about this one right here? So we have A1 by the end of the course, etc., to describe various alternatives. What comes next? Don't listen to these guys. They might be wrong. Yeah, you got C2? All right, C2, let's take a look. To ask for information from a car dealer and make a choice. That sounds right. Good job. What's next? D1 can compare and contrast. Very good. Okay, Charles, why don't you start with the next one?
All right. A2, I would put to B1.
Yes.
To describe what the situation or story is about. That kind of sounds like summarizing. Do we have summarize? Yes, we do. Very good. Okay, Charles, what comes next?
With A3. We already did that one. Okay, sorry. C3. I would.
Yes. All right. Okay, what does it say? Retell what happened. Retell. That sounds like summarizing. Very good. Finally.
That would match with D2.
Yes. All right. Everybody got that? Very good. And finally, the last one. Yes, Hemley.
The remaining ones.
A3.
A3.
Along with B2.
Okay.
And C1. And D3.
Okay. Does everybody see the logic of how they go together, how they go from general to more specific? Very good. Excellent. Good job. That's what we need to look for. So as you can see here, usually when we have a very specific learning objective for evaluation purposes, it tends to indicate the criteria of what we're looking for. So when we're looking for a sample, for example here, the student is supposed to use appropriate vocabulary. Here the student has to use prefer, would like, and choose. Here the student has to use the simple past and the past continuous. So in general terms, if they are successful in most of those attempts, we're probably going to consider the student a passing performance. Yes, Cesar?
Excuse me, Leo. So do we have to place the objectives in every class every single day?
That's a different issue. That's something else. That's something completely different. Well, it is and it isn't. You're bringing up something from the past. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Somewhere else.
Sorry.
In an alternate universe. Listen, the thing about learning objectives, students must understand that there is a purpose to every lesson. Why am I here today? Okay. What am I going to learn today? When I leave, what will I be able to do with the language? So there has to be a reason for me being here. Okay? If I finished a class and I have no idea what I learned, or why I was here, or how I benefited from spending the last 2 hours with you and my classmates, we have a problem. Because when we don't have a sense of direction, where am I going with my learning, the students tend to get demotivated. Okay? So we don't want that. There has to be a sense of purpose, and they have to tell themselves, yes, I was able to learn this, and this, and this, and I can leave happily today, knowing that my teacher helped me learn what I needed to learn. Does that make sense? Now, you can write it, but you can also state it. Better yet, you can have your students state it to you. Good, James. What did you learn today? Well, today we learned how to place an order in a restaurant using I'd like and I'll have. Excellent. What else did we learn today? Today we learned vocabulary for shopping, so clothes, items of clothing, whatever. Okay? Yes?
Question about it. I usually used to tell them the objectives, class objectives, or wait until the end for them to tell me. But at my first feedback, the person told me that I should always write on the board the class objectives.
Where's John? John, did you listen to that? Did you hear that?
I got it.
We gotta do a little fine-tuning training with our ABOs, AQOs. She didn't take off any points though, right? No, she didn't take off any points. And it's like a suggestion, okay? That's also a remainder from the past. I remember I had to tell a group of 50 supervisors, and I had to tell them, hey, stop being so picky with the objectives, because they were taking off points because the teachers wouldn't write the objectives on the board in a certain way. Oh, you didn't write it, but you didn't write it this way. But I wrote it. No, but you didn't write it this way. And so I'm like, come on, guys, give me a break. I told the supervisor, I said, listen, stop it with that. It's becoming obsessive. I'm telling you, I'm the guy in charge. Stop it. Stop, stop, stop. You're causing anxiety. You're spending all your feedback time talking about the objective, and you're not focusing on the main lesson. It's a waste of time, okay? So I'm not telling you it's a waste of time, but you know what I mean, right? So listen, as long as students know what they had to learn, okay, and they come out feeling, hey, I was able to accomplish something, you did the right thing, okay? And I promise next time you won't hear that from anybody. John, don't forget John, okay? All right, so this is how we basically come up. We look at the objectives, They come in the book, but they're not written a certain way. So we have to kind of organize them and standardize them a little bit for equals, since the equals people, they're going to be here, in November for the first visit, and then the official visit will come in a few months later in May. So they're going to want to see that we use official objectives. So we basically look at the objective, like the one that's circled. We find the activity in the unit that matches the objective. And we say, oh, okay, oh, so this is what it means. All right, so this is like social media. We come up with the goal, the objective, and the standard from the GSC. And so the standard is what you're going to use to evaluate the students. We're currently working on that. We don't have them all ready yet, but we're working on that. And then here, for example, that's for reading. This is for speaking. Okay? Hello? Oops. Okay, here we go. All right, so we're combining to learn language for shopping and comparing products, learn how to ask a salesperson for help. So we're combining, we find the activities in the book. Oh, that's where the language is. Okay, it's almost like 3 activities together, all right? And so we come up with the goal. The student is able to make simple purchases by stating what is wanted and asking the price. That is directly from the Common European Framework. That's the language from the Common European Framework. Then we modify the book objective. We combine like those 2 and we make up 1. Can ask a salesperson for help and make a purchase when shopping. And then we have the GSE descriptor, can make simple purchases by stating what is wanted and asking for the price using nouns related to clothing. Okay, so this is what you're going to look for in your sample, nouns related to clothing. Okay, all right. Let's listen to a student, and I want you to tell me, does the student meet this criterion? The student is supposed to be able to make simple purchases by stating what is wanted and asking for the price using nouns related to clothing. So you basically have to listen to the sample and say, yes, the student can do this, or no, the student cannot do this. Okay? Here we go.
Hello, I'm looking for some nice clothes. Is this the section for juniors?
Yes, it is. How can I help you?
I'm looking for clothes casual. Do you have designer jeans?
Yes, we have Guess and Levi's.
Do you have size 28?
Yes, right here.
Okay, I will take this blouse too. How much is everything?
Let's see, $89.
Thank you. Here is my credit card.
Okay, talk to your partner for 30 seconds. Does the student meet the objective? Okay. Vladimir, you want to give it a shot? Yeah? Vladimir, let's listen to Vladimir. Vladimir, what do you say? What did you and John discuss? Does the student meet the criterion or not?
Yes, I think the student meet the criteria and he gave the right, the correct grammar. He used the correct grammar. He did a good job.
Okay. How many of you agree with Vladimir? Only one mistake?
She said close casual.
Okay.
Casual clothes.
You're starting to sound like my former supervisors. Okay. Did she meet, by the way, the only mistake you made was it's a she instead of a he. But did she meet the objective? How many of you say yes?
Yes.
James, what happened? Your arm hurt today?
Very weak.
The student's very weak. Okay, remember that the student had to make a simple purchase. Say, what do I want? Okay, what do I want? Asking for the price, and has to use nouns related to clothing. Okay. Did the student ask about prices?
Yes.
Did the student use nouns related to clothing?
Yes.
Did the student communicate a decision to make the purchase?
Yes.
And how was she going to make the purchase? Credit card. There's nothing to discuss. She met the objective. This is an A2 level objective. A2 is a basic level, okay? A2, really, if you look at the Common European Framework, A2 level students are not supposed to be able to do that much. This student is actually at a higher level. Can anybody tell me why?
Just speaking in complete sentences. Yeah.
Mostly complete sentences. She made one little mistake. Okay, remember, you're looking at the whole, not each individual part. Don't get that picky now, because I'll tell you a story. I don't want to tell you that story, because then don't get so picky, all right? It's the whole. Does the student meet this criterion? That's the general question. She does. She uses very low frequency vocabulary that you don't teach in a course book. What did she use?
Jeans.
Designer jeans. They'll teach you jeans, but they won't say designer jeans. Blouse they'll teach, I think.
You're
Right?
gonna say shirt before you say blouse, though.
Maybe.
She said blouse.
She said blouse. What else? But how many of you have been to a department store? Everybody, right? Did she mention a specific section?
Fashion.
The juniors section. What does that apply to? Who's a junior? Not kids. Female teenagers. That's right. In the department store. Yeah, junior section. The junior section. Yeah, the ladies. It's a ladies section. It's not kids section. Juniors. The junior section. Sure. I buy a lot of women's clothing. I go every time I go. I'm telling you.
Maybe here.
No, in the U.S. Go to Macy's. Ask for the junior section. You'll find a lot of kids, women's clothing. Not kids. No, but not. You'll never find it for boys. You'll see boys 7 to 14, boys 1 to 6. You'll never see juniors for boys. You'll only see it for girls. That's right. I know. I've spent years and years going shopping because I had to go to these different conferences and I had to go on a mission, do shopping before I came back. And so I had to shop. So the junior section is a ladies section, but the young girls, right? The teenagers. So this is low frequency vocabulary that you don't teach in a course book. So this complements, it strengthens her ability to refer to the clothing. Okay. All right, so here we go. This is what we get from the Common European Framework: can ask for and provide everyday goods and services, can make simple purchases by stating what is wanted and asking for the price. Okay? Now, I'm going to skip this because I want to get to the nitty-gritty. Okay? No, actually, I'll explain this. Our evaluation system is based on something called analytic scoring, not holistic scoring. Analytic scoring. That means that you have a criterion. You meet or you don't meet the criterion. You have another criterion. You meet or you don't meet the criterion. And you have a third or a fourth or whatever. They all add up. So whatever score you get for each criterion adds to the next one. So you add all of them up and you arrive at a final score. Holistic is different. Holistic is like a big description, which is a 3, a big description, which is a 2, a big description, which is a 1. You give a 3, a 2, or a 1 based on the description. So Helen, what does she mostly like? A 3 or a 2? No, she's more like a 2, so I'll give her a 2. That's holistic. Analytic is different. Okay, analytic is this. Okay. Okay, actually, excuse me, before we get to that point. So when you're evaluating, you select your learning outcome or your learning objective. Okay, what am I going to evaluate tomorrow? Okay? You choose or design the activity or task that will get the student to produce the sample. Yeah? You got to prepare and review your criteria for success. If the student meets or does not meet, okay, the objective. You execute the activity in class or online if it's an online environment. You assess the outcomes and then you give feedback. You must always give feedback to students. Give students feedback. Okay? All right. So this is our evaluation system for speaking and writing. It will undergo a slight change next year to make it a little more extensive for the high intermediate level courses. But generally speaking, it's a simple system. Now, the Kaiser and other people, you know, when they talk about these evaluation systems, one of the things that they normally recommend is that if you're going to apply an evaluation system with a group of teachers, the larger the group, the simpler the system. It's better to have a simple system. Don't make it too complicated. How many of you have worked with a system that was here before the one we're using now? Good. You know, it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. It was a complicated nightmare. You had to be a mathematician to figure out the score for each grade, okay? This is different. This basically says that whenever you get a sample from a student, whether it's a speaking sample or a writing sample, you're looking for three things. You're evaluating three things. Comprehensibility. Can I understand most of what she or he is writing or speaking? Does it sound like English? Does it look like English, or does it look like Chinese? Okay? Also, is it on task? Because many years ago, I remember I used to evaluate these Michigan essays, and sometimes they had these topics. And I remember there was one about the internet, and it said, what is the future of the internet or something? I don't know what it was. And so the student had to write the future of the internet. And then I read this whole holy scripture. The student had written something about the Bible and Jesus Christ and all this stuff. And it was really well written. I mean, it was really well written. It had a lot of language. It was rich in vocabulary, complex grammatical structures. But it was off topic. No good. You get a 0. It's no good. So even though it's really well written, it's not on topic. So it has to be on topic or on task, and it has to be mostly comprehensible. Not completely comprehensible, but mostly comprehensible. If it's mostly comprehensible, you give the student a 1. If you're like, what the heck is she talking about? Then it's a 0. If you're having a hard time understanding, it's a 0. 2, form. The grammar or the vocabulary that corresponds to the learning outcome was used correctly. Okay? So you look at the sample, the number of times that the student used the vocabulary or the grammar, and you say, well, were most of the attempts successful or not successful? Not all perfect. You might make a mistake. Remember I said I'd like and I'll have? And then I said I'll have, I'll like. So 1 out of the 4 was wrong, but 3 were right. Most of the attempts were successful, so I'd give the student a 1. If it had been the other way around, 3 wrong and 1 right, I'd give them 0. Finally, effort. Okay, this is when we reward the student's ability to kind of go further. When you're looking at speaking, it means that you go a little beyond the minimum. So for example, if I ask you, is Thalia from Brazil? What are you going to say to me? No, she isn't. Okay, you're getting, no. You said no, she isn't first, so you're going to get a 0. Okay, no other chance. Now Rochi's going to get, what do you say? What'd you say?
She's from, no she isn't, she's from
Mexico. Mexico. I think she's the one with one less rib, right? She took a rib, yeah. Okay.
That's an extra.
Yeah, actually, you could add that too. You'd really secure the point. But you have to go above and beyond the minimum. If you say, no, she isn't, you're going to get a 0. No, she isn't. She is a great singer from Mexico. She is married to, and whatever comes after it, just Tony Mottola. Sounds like Motorola. You get a point. So elaboration, a point. The form was used correctly. Yes or no? If the answer is yes, then they get a point. We pay the bill? Did we pay the electric bill? Okay, all right. Very good. So now we're going to listen. We're going to skip this. We're going to listen to a student, and we want to know if the student can describe the weather by using appropriate adjectives. The student can offer suggestions on clothing to wear using appropriate nouns. So this is what we're evaluating. I want you to listen very carefully. Does the student meet the criterion? What grade would you give the student from 0 to 3? What are the 3 things we check for? Comprehensibility. Form, effort. So, is there enough language there? Is it mostly correct? And do we understand most of the student? Akash, what's going on?
Well, I was thinking of the last thing.
Yeah?
I was like, if the student meets the criteria, but also compared to the other students.
No. Thank you for bringing it up. We never compare one student to another. We apply the criterion. Does the student meet the criterion? Yes or no, period. Don't compare. Oh, but he sounded better, so I better bring his score down a little bit. He gets a 3, but no, he gave a speech. He sounds like Obama, this guy over here. No, I'll give him the 3. I'll bring this other guy down to a 2. Don't do that. Don't do that. No good. Okay? Each person that you listen to each sample, evaluate, give the grade then and there. Okay? All right? Good. Good question. Here we go. We're going to listen to Sadit. Is it? Well, you'll figure it out. It's a girl who is trying to convince the other girl. There are 2 girls here. One who's going jogging. It doesn't sound like jogging, but there's one girl who's going jogging and she wants to dress a certain way. The other girl's trying to convince her not to. Focus on the girl who's trying to convince her not to, not the, I forgot which one's Sadit, okay? Anyway, here we go.
Hi, Romina. Hi, Sadit. How are you? I'm excited. Really? Why? Because I'm jogging today. But, Sadit, it's a chilly day and you wear shorts and a t-shirt. For me, it's perfect to jogging today. Well, I think you should t-shirt, a long pants, a sport jacket, and sneakers. I don't think so. I think the shorts and the t-shirt is okay. But look, the sky is cloudy. Okay, I will. I wear the t-shirt, the long pants, the sneakers, and the sport jacket. Thanks, bro. You're welcome. And don't forget somewhere.
Okay, somewhere is actually sunscreen or sunblock, I think. Okay? So, normally we don't get to listen to the student again. We listen one time. So let's see how you guys do. In your minds, individually, don't talk to anybody yet. Give a grade from 0 to 3. What would you give Sadit? No, the other girl, Romina. What would you give Romina, the one who's saying, hey, yeah, but what's going on here? You know, that. What would you give her? Would you give her a 0? Would you give her a 1? Would you give her a 2? Or would you give her a 3? If you give her a 0, that means that she was mostly incomprehensible. She'd never used the target language, and she never made an effort beyond a minimum couple of words. If you gave her a 3, she elaborated, she performed some functions you didn't expect, she used the target grammar or the target vocabulary, and she was mostly comprehensible. Okay? So give her a score and talk to your partners, and then let me know what you gave her. Okay?
Is it A2?
0, 1, 2. Oh yeah, good. This is an A2. This is A1 moving into A2. Okay? Well,
I gave her a 3.
you gave her a 3. Everybody listen. A 3. Okay? You sure, right? He looks sure.
She achieved the goal of communicating the message that she wanted.
Okay. So she used the target grammar. You understood most of it. A 3. How many of you gave her a 3? Okay. Everybody agrees with Javier, right? The 3s. Who gave her a 2? Okay. Okay. All right. Alberto, you sound like you're dying to say something. Okay. Tell us.
I mean, like, she did a good job. She did a great job, actually. But I think, I don't remember what it was, but she made a mistake.
Can you say that again?
She made
mistake. All right. I know what the mistake was.
But I mean, she used the target words, the target vocabulary, because she was. I mean, I don't remember what they were, but I know they were there, and she. I couldn't understand. I could understand everything she said, but I know there was. I don't remember what it was, but I know there was something that
She made a mistake. So you brought it down from 3 to 2 because of a mistake. Okay? No, I want to make sure I understand.
like too picky. But,
All right. No, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, we're gonna see. All right.
but I don't know. It's just
Okay.
that's what I think. Maybe now you're making me question.
That's it. No pressure. No pressure.
I gave her a 3 because you told me I was very picky, so this time.
Ah. Okay. I'm sorry. Your name?
Mornay.
Mornay. Tell us. Give us your appreciation. What did you give her?
Yeah, we also gave her a 3.
Okay.
But something that stood out for us was that she only mentioned one aspect of the weather. She only said cloudy.
No, she said chilly.
Cloudy.
Yeah, you said, but you gave her a 3 anyway. Okay. All right. Listen. What would I give her? I'd probably give her 3. This is A1 transitioning to A2. So first of all, that really doesn't make a difference because it's supposed to be the objective. But anyway, there's a lot of language there for somebody who's that low. And second, she's trying to convince this girl, hey, listen, but hey, what's the matter with? Because the other girl said, hey, I'm going to wear what I want to wear. I like the way I look. I looked at myself in the mirror, and I'm going out there this way. And she said, no, but you can't go out there this way. So she mentioned 2 types of weather, right? And she said, hey, this is not going to work for you. You're going to get cold out there. You're going to get cold. And so, she made the effort. She was mostly comprehensible. She basically she did kind of slip with the use of the verb wear. She omitted the use of the verb wear. But that's not part of the main criterion. The main criterion is the adjectives and the nouns, the clothing items. Okay? So she actually met the adjective. I would give her a 3 for that. So even though she made a mistake, she omitted the verb, she's okay with what was really looked for here. Okay? Yeah? Okay. A believer now. Okay. This is an interesting sample. This is an interesting sample. The student can give, accept, or refuse advice about health using useful expressions such as, can you give me some advice? I would suggest that, or whatever. Something similar to that. Okay? All right. So let's listen to this guy. You'll know it's the guy who sounds like he's in pain. That's the guy we're evaluating. All right? There's one that doesn't sound like he's in pain, and there's one that sounds like he's in pain. All right, here we go.
Hi, Victor. You look terrible.
Victor.
I don't feel good. My skin hurts. What's happened? I have a sunburn. How do you get it? Oh, well, I went to a beach yesterday, and I forgot my sunblock at home. Well, it's actually in my backpack. I forgot my backpack. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Can you give me some advice? Yeah, I think the best idea for you is to buy a cream for your skin so your body will become to health. Sounds good. It's a good idea. Can you give me other advice? Yeah, you should will put tomatoes in your skin. Oh, I tried and get back to you. Okay. Bye. See you, John.
Okay, Victor. It's Victor. It's the guy who sounds like he's in pain. He's the guy who sounds like the ghost from Christmas Past. Okay? So what would you give him? 0, 1, 2, 3. Discuss with your partner. What would you give him? What would you give him? Okay. How many of you gave Victor a 0? Okay, good. A 1? Good. A 2? Okay. A 3? All right, between the 2 and the 3. This is interesting. All right, let me go with the 2s. Let me see. A Butte. Yeah. Why a 2? You gave him a 2, right? Yeah, why a 2?
Well, probably because he had a really hard time like kind of speaking or gathering his ideas. I mean, even though he used the word can you give me some advice and everything? But he was like, sure, and
So where did you take the point off?
the point of,
Comprehension, form, or effort?
yeah.
You gotta know. You gotta know where you took it off. Okay, think about that. Get back to me. Yes.
He's role playing. It's fantastic.
What do you mean he's role playing?
Role playing with the painful voice and everything. Oh,
Hey, isn't that what it's all about? That's what it's all about. You gotta act. Remember,
he's engaged.
he's engaged.
Sounds like he's burning.
Yeah. It hurts. I started touching my arm too. I was like, man, that hurts.
Is that the point? Is that what we're able to do?
He's, no. But I think what he's trying to say is that he played his role well. Right. So he's putting the effort into it. Yeah. So Abute, what is it? What is it? You got to tell me. 3?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Who else gave him a 2? Cesar. Oh, did you give him a 2, James? Okay. All right. All right. Cindy.
Yeah. Well, we think that probably.
No.
What?
3 of
Luis,
them, 2.
what's going on?
3.
You're 3. Okay. You don't want to include yourself in the group.
Segregation.
Okay. All right. Huh?
The 3 of us.
What? you pressured everybody. Look at that. They fell in line with you. They said, oh, wait, we better. So 3 now?
No.
Oh, the 3 of you gave him a 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Why did you give him a 2?
Because absolutely they are engaged in the conversation and they are indeed using these expressions with modals like to give, accept and refuse advice. However, the form probably is not the appropriate because if they are studying these expressions, probably they were taught how to use the modal verbs like should, would, can, could. In most of the, it was comprehensible, but it was not that accurate.
Okay. When you say, hold on. This is a good point. When you say he wasn't that accurate, are you referring in general?
No, just the form.
What form? What are we looking for here?
They use modals.
It really just says expressions. So it's not really that specific. So the expressions have to fulfill a communicative function. The communicative function is, listen, I have a problem. Can you help me with the problem? How do I request help by using specific expressions? Does he use those expressions? Now listen, you want to know what I would give him? It can be a 3 or a 2. It really depends on what we taught in terms of expressions, what we taught in the course. If we're fully satisfied with his 2 interventions, we can't really penalize him for effort because the poor guy, first of all, he explains, Abute, come on guy. He really explains at the beginning how he got the pain. Oh, listen, I forgot the sunblock and I went to the beach. I left the sunblock in the backpack. And he says, I forget. Oh, I forgot. And he self-corrects. He said, oh, it hurts. Oh, it's like, I'm like, I could feel the pain. Yeah. And so he says, oh, thank you. Can you give me some more? Your advice is so good. Give me some more. So, the poor guy, he makes an effort. He really plays his role really well. And most of the time he was comprehensible. I thought he was, I understood everything he said, every single word he said. So the big question is form. He says, can you give me some advice? Can you give me other advice? Yeah. Right? Would that be sufficient to comply with it? That's the big question. We don't really know because we haven't seen the course. But if there were more expressions and we expected him to use them, then it would be a 2. Does that make sense? Yeah? All right. You almost feel like giving the guy a 3 anyway, right? You could give him a 3 if that's sufficient, but okay. The student can give ideas related to movie reviews. The student can give ideas related to movie reviews using emphatic words and participle adjectives. So the ing adjectives and the ed adjectives. Ed for person, ing for things. Okay, here we go. So it's the person who's presenting, who's approaching the manager. Not the manager, it's the customer. Okay? Listen to the customer.
Hi, Georgia. I want to tell you something important. Tell me, miss, what happened? The last week I was so disappointed with the movie theater because I paid for an expensive ticket but I couldn't watch the movie. And why you couldn't watch the movie? What happened? Because around me were so many noisy kids and in the other hand the theater was so good. Okay, I understand your point. I want to make something that makes you feel better without service. What can you do? Yes, I want to refund computer. Okay, there's no problem. And also, I want to give you a free ticket for coming the next week, and you can see the movie that you want. I hope this thing makes you feel happy, and also I want to say you sorry again for this uncomfortable moment that you passed here. Yes, thanks for understanding.
0.
All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you a little less time because this is like on-the-spot thinking. You, in a real classroom, you'd have to give a grade right away. So here we go. 30 seconds. 30 seconds for a grade. Okay. How many of you gave her a 3? A 2? A 1? Oops. A 0? 0. 0. Oh, wow. Yeah, we can. It's possible. We are all over the place here. Who gave her a 3? Nobody. Who gave her a 2? Charles, right? You gave her Charles and James, both of you guys. Charles first.
I gave her a 2 because I think where she was lacking was in her use of the form. She maybe didn't understand very well the assignment. She talked about her experience at the movie theater instead of talking about a movie review, things that you might use for a movie review. But she did use, she did a good job of explaining her experience there. She made, I think, a good effort, and I could understand what she was talking about. So I gave her a 2.
James.
Very similar. Like, it was nothing to do with the topic. It was not related to a movie review. So it was totally off. But her effort, she put the effort in. She got a free movie ticket. She got a so she definitely tried.
All right.
But it wasn't related to movie reviews.
So I assume that those of you who gave her a 1 gave her a 1 for effort?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, this is a tricky one. This is tricky because you have to ask yourself what happens when the student is off topic or doesn't meet the theme or the topic of the objective. She was supposed to give a movie review, but she talked about the movie theater. She talked about the nasty kids. She talked about whatever. She wanted a refund. So she didn't really perform in accordance with this, so we were not able to get a sample, so therefore she never made an effort to also provide us with the correct form. So she's missing, she's off topic, no form. She does produce a lot of language. So let me put it this way. If it's December 16th and we're like a week away from Christmas Eve, give her a 1, give her a 2, give her 2. But or if it's her birthday, right? Her birthday is like tomorrow, don't give her a 0. But you could give her a 0. This is a tough one, actually. I shouldn't have shown this one, but it's tough because you could also technically give her 1. You say, okay, she was off topic, but now that's your call.
Okay.
She might be a high-performing student. She's always raising her hand, like Charles over there, who wants to. He's dying to say something, and she's always. I said, okay, I'll give her a break. I'll give her a 1. I'll give her a 2. Okay. You could just, but the main point here is you got to know why you gave it to her. Okay? Yes, Charles.
My big question was, she's supposed to be speaking to the manager. Who was the other person supposed to be playing? That's like you're saying she was speaking to someone.
The customer. She's the customer.
She's the customer.
So,
She's
the manager. The manager.
See, that's why it's confusing.
Yeah,
why would you give a movie review to a manager? So she probably thought a review of the movie theater, right? There was a confusion there.
Got to ask questions. Classroom language. Teacher. Teacher.
There's a leniency given. I would never give a movie review to the manager of a movie. That's it. That's a weird scenario.
It is a weird scenario. It is a weird scenario. But We do see weird things in the classroom. Actually, not just the classroom. We see weird things everywhere. Right. Okay, good. So we're going to jump to writing now. Okay, we're going to go to writing. And it's the same rubric. Now, I want you to look at this writing right here. Okay, I think you have this in your handout. Yes, Luis?
A little suggestion, which I noticed in my classroom. 0 or 1 or 2 or 3, I think that's too tight. Haven't you guys consider 1.5, 2.5, 2.25?
The thing is, since it's an analytic scoring grid, you either meet the criterion or you don't. If you meet it, you get a 1. If you don't, it's a 0. It's not like, well, kind of half-half. No. Because remember that, for example, in the case of form, most of the attempts, not all of the attempts have to be correct. Most of them have to be correct. So there isn't like a 50% correct and a 100% correct and a 0%. It's most of the attempts. So it's either 0 or a 1, 0 or a 1, 0 or a 1. I understand you might want to give them a little extra credit there, but that would be entirely subjective. Okay? With an analytic scoring grid. With a holistic scale, it's a little different. You can be a little more flexible with the holistic, because sometimes you have a holistic, you have a 3 and it's a big description, or 2 it's a description, and then when you look at the performance, there's a little of a 3, a little of a 2, I'll give them a 2.5. Yeah? That you do get with a holistic scale. You don't get that with an analytic scale. Okay? All right, good. So take a look at this reading right here. The student can write a short text about a person he or she admires using verbs in the past tense. So the person has to write about somebody they admire using the past tense. Read it. You guys are fantastic readers, so you can read 300 words a minute, 100% comprehension. That's the native speaker reading rate. So read it and give a 0 to a 3. Remember, it's the same logic. Comprehensibility, form, and effort. Now, when it comes to writing, usually for effort, if you can picture yourself in a certain situation that's depicted by the writer, if you can see in your mind what the writer is talking about, if you can empathize, if it sparks an emotional response somehow, give them a point for effort. Okay? So let me give you 30 seconds. No, 1 minute. Excuse me, I said 1 minute. Not 30 seconds, 1 minute. How many of you gave the student a 3? How many of you gave the student a 2? A 1? Okay. I assume no zeros, right? Okay. Okay. Who gave him a 2 again? Okay, Sebastian, why don't you give it? Explain to us.
Because he or she made several mistakes. At
Where?
The beginning.
Where?
At the beginning.
Like what?
When he was 10 years old, he's missing old, a friend of his father were visiting his house. But this still
Oh, you're sparking a response here. You got some people defending this guy.
Then at the end, he was died.
So wait a minute. So you are taking off points for what? For form?
Yeah.
So you're okay with comprehension?
Yeah.
You're okay with effort?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, James.
But look at the level.
Yeah, it's like a basic 6. This is a basic 6. Yeah, there are about, I had the number. I actually had the exact number of words. For the FCE, they ask you to write anywhere between 90 and 120 words. And this is like a basic 6. There are almost 100 words here, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So that's not bad for a basic 6, first of all. But you're not taking off points for effort. You're taking off points for form. So pick up the pace a little bit. I'll give you my answer. My answer would be a 3. Why? First of all, I think everybody agrees with the effort, right? You can imagine the grandpa and everything and traveling all over the world and all this stuff, right? There's a lot of language here. Okay, in response to the type of task and the level, there are a lot of words here. Second, there are 14 attempts to use the past tense. Of the 14, 10 were successful. Is that more than 50%? That's more than 50%. They get a point for form. And of course, I think most of this is comprehensible. Yeah. So the person should get a 3. Okay, is that clear?
Yeah.
Yeah? All right, good. Good, good. Yeah, yeah, I mean, it's really good for basic 6. Okay, here's another one. The student can write a short text using the present simple about something they like to do regularly. Okay, read it for a minute. Give it a grade. All right, how many of you gave the student a 3? Thank goodness. A 2? A 1? 0? This is going to be interesting. Okay. Who gave him a 2? Helen? That was you, right? Okay, Helen, explain to us.
Well, there are verbs that she's actually using in the present simple, like is or like or practice. Then she has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mistakes, but she also has more than 5 or 6 verbs that she's using actually correct, the correct way.
Okay.
So it's pretty much.
All right, so where did you take the point off?
That it's not the majority of the majority of the verbs are not well used.
So you're taking a point off for form, and you're giving a point for effort, and you're giving a point for comprehensibility? Okay.
Yes.
Mornay, do you have the same? You gave 2, right? You gave it 2? Yeah, yeah, why?
I feel like he used a lot of the verbs in the present simple tense. But if I were to take the point off, I would take it off for effort. I mean, it's not a lot of, he didn't write a lot.
But it's a
Maybe
short.
It's a short.
No, I could have written maybe a little bit.
Okay.
What's the definition of short again?
90 to 100 words or?
Well, this is the same level. This is a basic 6 also. So, but that's not an issue here. It's not an issue here. The number of words is not an issue here. There are other issues. How many of you gave him a 1? Okay, who hasn't participated in a while? Raise your hands again. 1? Josie, yeah.
They say is and like, but apart from that, there's just nothing. Then they go like quite off topic.
Goes into the park.
What do you mean by quite off topic?
I mean, they say that they like tennis, but then they go on about the ball falling down, but it's not really about like why they like it. It's about what the game is.
Okay. So if you gave him a 1, what was it for?
I would say there is some effort. They've tried to use like different forms, like could. They've tried to connect things, saying because, which for it's a 1. They're trying to.
Okay. Point here, and then John, I'll let you speak. The most subjective of the 3 criteria is what? Effort. Effort is the most subjective. Okay, it's almost like a joker, right? In a deck of cards. John, why did you give? Thank you, Josie. Why did you give him a 1?
Comprehension, it's all over the place. There's no coherent focus on it. It's a little bit of this, a little bit. It's all over the place. The effort, to me, that's the bare minimum I'd expect. That is literally scraping it. For the language, the target language, yeah, okay, we've got some examples in there, but that's 1 at maximum to me.
Okay, so let's see. Let's go back to the objective. The student can write a short text using the present simple about something she or he likes to do regularly. Okay, I'm going to go back to Josie's point and also John's point about comprehensibility, cohesiveness, and coherence, especially coherence. Do these ideas come together? Do they make sense? Is there a logical sequence of ideas presented in this? To be honest, it's first of all, look at the title, All About Me. This is about sports. So listen, you could be like really drastic and say, hey, this is off topic, because you were supposed to write about things that you like to do regularly. And this is like, I like sports because, play soccer, right? Soccer was boring, I thought, whatever. I like tennis because, I like batting, it's like baiting, whatever, I don't know. It's more like a discussion on sports in general, yeah? I think it says something about the rules here. If the ball falls down, your team lost. Is that consistent?
Not true.
Is that consistent with this?
No.
It really isn't. So if it's not, plus if you look at form, it's, and I go back to Josie's point, it really, it's between is, or the verb to be, and like. And that's it. Now, if you're going to give credit for form, there has to be greater variety. Okay? You have to do more. Give me more. If I don't have anything to evaluate you on, you don't give me that variety. I'm not really sure if you can use the present tense, the present simple, to communicate a variety of ideas, because you're sticking to like. Now, unless you're a teenager from the Valley in the 80s in California, when they used to say like all the time, right? They still do, right? Then it doesn't really help you so much. So, I mean, it's only like, so like is her favorite or his favorite word, and that's it. So there isn't much there. If you're going to give a point, okay, you might give a point for effort, again, if it's the person's birthday or Christmas time, right? Easter, weekend, I don't know if you're Catholic or whatever. Okay. All right, does that make sense? All right, this is the final sample. All right, so here the student can describe a daily routine and information related to place using the present simple. So if you look at the writing prompt, the actual task, it says, describe what lunchtime is like for you on a school day. Be sure to tell your lunchtime, to tell about, that's a little strange, the construction. Be sure to tell about your lunchtime so that someone who has never had lunch with you on a school day can understand who you have, where you have lunch and what lunchtime is like. So that's the task. That's the prompt. So read it and give me a score and tell me what you think. 0, 1, 2, or 3.
The spelling of some words is mistaken. I think the message is...
Well, he didn't say a word. He said some words. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, everybody. Tables, I think. That. But the message is there. We have a message, and what was requested there, we have in the writing.
Okay.
So it is a 3.
Rochi, why did you give him a 3?
It's a 3. I think it's a 3 because the person gets the message through. He or she uses the correct form, even though there are some mistakes, but you never aim to perfection when you correct, especially at that level. And besides that, I think that the student meets the criteria of the prompt.
Okay.
One of the most important things.
Who gave the student a 2? Yes, Charles.
I gave him a 2. I took a point off for effort. Even though they do use the form correctly in the correct verb, they use the same verbs over and over again in the present simple. They say is and have a lot, and they don't have a big variety. So for that, I took a point off.
I'll get back to you. Okay, he offered me something I hadn't heard before. Okay, good. Vladimir?
Well, I gave 2 because of the effort.
Why? What do you mean by effort? Why did you take off a point for effort?
No, I didn't take off a point for. I gave a point for.
You gave a point for effort.
Yeah.
And what else did you give a point for?
For comprehensibility.
Okay, so you took off a point for form. Why?
Because it should be more like variety of these verbs.
Okay, good. You two guys help me with the discussion here. Perfect. Listen, I would probably give the student a 2. Okay? Yeah. Why? Hamley was about to say, yeah, I got the last one. No, listen, nobody's wrong today. But if you look at this, first of all, if I'm going to, I understand the logic behind Charles's deduction because he's saying, hey, listen, there should be more verbs. It's the same reason Vladimir took a point off too. They both agree. They just took it off for different categories, right? Different criteria. So, can you imagine yourself in this lunchroom, in this cafeteria?
Yes.
Can you see it? Can you see the tables and everything? I can see it, and so I give them credit for that. It's the effort for me kind of conveys the imagery that is associated with the task. So I would give them the point for effort, and I would take off a point for form, because it's really have and to be, and there is a one reference in infinitive form to eat, but it's not conjugated, so it's not really me using the verb itself. It's kind of a complement to the initial, the main clause. We have 35 minutes to eat lunch, yeah? But it's not a reflection of the student's ability to use a variety of present simple forms. If I had to take off a point, I'd take it off of form, maybe not effort, because I can kind of picture the lunchroom, and I can see myself there. So be sure to tell about your lunch time so that someone who has never had lunch with you on the school day can understand where you have lunch and what lunchtime is like. And so it's like, yeah, the student is successful. Yes, Charles?
You could argue that using the base form after using present simple
is a more
is an
complex.
argument. Yeah, you could argue that shows that they clearly understand how to structure a sentence, and then afterwards still use verbs.
In the end,
Yeah.
listen, no evaluation system guarantees 100% agreement, but it increases inter-rater reliability enormously when everybody has or tries to apply the same criteria. As long as you can explain why you gave the student the extra point, you say, hey, well, in my case, I'm going to give him a point because it's a little more complex. He's using an infinitive and he's going beyond. It's a more complex structure. It's a long sentence. There are two ideas there, etc. I'm going to give him a point for that. That's your call. In the end, it's the teacher's call. But you try to stick to the criteria as much as possible, okay? If you can't explain why you gave the student an extra point, then there's a problem, okay? Then you're not being objective, you're being subjective. Does that make sense? Yeah, Charles?
And grade the same for every student, of course.
Yeah, exactly. So, and never compare.
Yeah.
Never compare, okay? All right, good. So to finish, true or false, you can tell if your students will pass as early as the first day. False. False. That's crazy false. Learning goals and objectives are the same thing. I didn't hear too many. False. Which one is more specific?
Objectives.
Objectives. Goals are general. Okay? You can evaluate your students as soon as you introduce a new language point. Good. Formative assessment is not as important as summative assessment. False. I can take 2 speaking samples at the same time. You were too sure. False. You're right. False. Listen, when you're listening, when you're getting a sample, you must focus your attention on that one student. Unless you're Superman or Superwoman and you can kind of process all that input at the same time, it's hard. You need to focus on one student. Good, she did it. Fine. Give her a grade. Move on to the next one. Yes,
Can I
James?
ask a question here
Yeah.
about assessing speaking, and like you said about at the beginning of the session, people getting bored. Okay, for example, you pay your attention there. I'm sat here for 20 minutes. I'm going to lose attention. So, how would you go around this? Maybe put people in groups and get them to speak together in pairs, but make sure you assess one person. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean,
Move them around, so I'm not just talking to one person and leaving 7 people alone. We've got 4 groups of 2. I'm directing my attention to one person. The other people are still active talking. Then I move them around, and I can still
that's a good idea.
individually.
That's a good idea.
All active at the same
That's a very good idea. So change partners. Every time you switch partners, you're talking to somebody new. It's not the same task anymore. Even though you're technically doing the same thing, you're performing the same communicative function, but it's with a different person. That different person is going to offer you a different outlook, a different insights, a different viewpoint. So they're going to talk from their own experience, their own life experiences, their own language, or their own schema. Good idea. All right. True or false? With writing, we can evaluate on the scale of 0 to 3. True. I should give a student full points for writing if it is really good, even if the content is not what I asked for. False. Good. It is possible to run out of time when I'm evaluating. It kind of is true, because you run out of time. You take too long. Yeah, that's what I call shelf life. Okay, you run out of time. Okay, the final exam is the most important evaluation. False. Absolutely false. I cannot give students another chance for speaking or writing. False. Okay, very good. Any questions? That was 100% clear. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Good work.